Hi, I'm Jason and welcome to my shop. And look what showed up today, my new router lift. Basically, I decided to switch over to something like this because my current setup is not as accurate as I'd like it to be. I'd like to show you what I have currently, and then I'll go through the process of opening this box up and we'll install this, and I'll show you a reason why this was the best fit for me, and it might be the best fit for you as well. So my table saw is a Ridgid R4512. It's a fairly common, what they call hybrid saw. It's not really a cabinet saw, and it's not a job site saw. It's kind of a combination between the two, so they call this a hybrid. It's got a lot of features that are pretty attractive for a mid-range saw, especially for the price. One of the most attractive features to me when I bought it was the ability to add an additional wing here in this saw. And all along, from the moment that I decided I was going to buy this saw, I knew that I wanted to put a router. When I got the saw, luckily even the manual told me exactly the dimensions, and I was able to build an insert, which I built out of MDF. This is 3/4 MDF. And I knew I wanted to put a router table here, but I couldn't decide on how exactly I wanted to do it. I'd been looking at router lifts like this one, but frankly the price was a little bit out of my range at the time. I looked for additional options as far as how to build something, have some kind of accuracy, not exactly perfect accuracy, but some kind of accuracy, and also be able to use things like the fence of the table saw as part of the setup. So this was the best way to do it. My router is I bought this router specifically for this setup. My router is a Ridgid R4512. It's a currently available router that is sold at Home Depot. And one of the attractive features about it is that when it's in its plunge base, it has if you flip it upside down, there's an adjustment screw that can be accessed through the plate. And that makes it really handy for converting over to a simple router table setup like I have here. So I actually have the router mounted upside down on this table, and the hole's even drilled here where I can access with a little T-wrench to adjust the height of the router. That works. It's a little bit cumbersome to work with. Part of my problem is the access here, and I'm going to move the camera and I want to show you that. So as you can see, like I said, this is just an MDF insert that I made for this part of the wing, and the router hole, the access hole for the router spindle, I was kind of stuck with having to come up with just a one size that I could work with, since I didn't have any kind of plates or anything that could be removed. So I stuck with this, which was about 1 3/4 inch roughly hole to access. Now this has worked, but it's always been a little bit difficult changing bits. One thing with this router is that in order to change the bit, you have to engage a spindle lock, which is not accessible from the top. You actually have to reach down under. You have to reach under the table and access that to engage that lock, and then you get the wrench on the spindle. That's doable, but it is a little bit cumbersome. The other thing is that if I'm dealing with a really small bit and I'd like to have a smaller throat plate or a smaller plate, I can't do that because this hole is a fixed size. So that's where the new router lift is going to come in. So let's take a look at the new router lift. So there's a couple reasons I picked this lift. One, and most importantly, is that it's compatible with the router motor, the motor assembly that comes with my Ridgid. And that's not always the case with most lifts. A lot of lifts are designed to work around maybe 2 or 3 common models. The most common, probably the most common, is the Porter cable motor. This lift actually works by some adjustable clamping blocks, and by adjusting those, you can adapt it to probably just about every router motor out there that can be taken out of its base. And that's the key thing. If the router can be taken out of its base, it can probably be adapted. Another reason I picked this one is that it's got these magnetic plates that will pop off, and there's various size ones that comes with it. So you can pop in the size that best fits the bit that you're currently working with. Also, it is been proven to be probably one of the most precise lifts on the market. It has down to the 30-second adjustments, and that makes it as accurate as I'm looking for. Even to the 16th would have probably been accurate enough, but the 30-second is great. It's easily be retrofitted into something like my table that I have here. It's just a matter of cutting out a pocket and dropping it in. And let's go ahead and pull this puppy out of here. Now, just after just simply picking it up, I can tell that this thing is quality. It's high quality. It's a machined aluminum top. The Craig, I believe the Craig ones are all plastic of some sort. Had the tendency to want to sag under weight, especially if you have a heavy router. This one, on the other hand, it's all metal. It's all aluminum. And I gotta tell you, just looking at it here, and also I've watched quite a few reviews and whatnot online as well before I bought mine, and it really sounds like it's the last lift I'll ever have to buy. I'm gonna bring the camera in and we'll take a look at this locking mechanism, or this clamping mechanism that's used to hold the router. All right, so here we have the underside of the router lift, obviously, and you've got these clamping blocks, and this is really the heart of the system that allows you to pretty much clamp just about every router motor on the planet. I looked in the manual, and the manual really only lists about a dozen or so different models and manufacturers. However, they do mention the Ridgid R4512. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm willing to bet that that's probably fairly close to the Ridgid I have. And according to that, we would be using setting B1. Now I'm going to pull these blocks off real quick. I'm going to hold up the manual here real quick. As you can see, the Ridgid's B1. And there's a series of holes right here. And the letters correspond to those holes. And then the holes on the blocks, the clamping blocks, also have numbers. So in this case, we want B1. So we'll want to use this second hole down and the very outer hole on the clamping block. So let's go ahead and set it up for that. Okay, we've got these in place now, and next thing to do is to pull the router motor out of the old table and test fit it into here. Ready to drop this in here. I actually did a little test fit prior off camera. It was a little tight. I did confirm that these are the right block settings for this particular router model, but it was a little tight. But I found that this screw here not only tightens, but you can actually force it to open the jaws up a little bit, and that was the key thing. That was the key thing. Once I did that, it seemed to be okay. So, all right, we're gonna drop this down in here, and I'm just gonna let that sit flat right the second there. Now, one of the key things that you have to pay attention to is if you don't have any kind of outboard switch on your router table, meaning that just something that the router can be plugged into, so that way you can power it, that you can switch it off and on remotely. Having this switch on here is accessible from the front is going to be very important. In my case, I actually have an exterior switch that I've added, so that's not as important. What is important to me, though, is that spindle lock that I mentioned. And I've got it oriented so that that spindle lock is going to basically be pointing just off to this angle here. And I'm doing that because I don't want this to interfere with this worm gear here, or this threaded rod. I don't want to interfere with this threaded rod. I don't know if it will, but I believe that when the lift is all the way up, there is a possibility that the cord here can interfere. So I'm just going to do that for safety or for precautionary reasons, and just put it off to this direction like that. And as I back this off, this should tighten up, and it looks like it has. And there we have it. Next step will be to cut our router table out. Now that we know that it's in the position we want it to be in, I'm just going to scribe a pencil line all the way around, just for reference. Alright, the next thing I want to do is figure out how far in we're going to need to make the whole cutout. And one of the things that I was just looking at is the clearance all the way around. Now, you'll see that there's these two bars with cap screws, and they call these snuggers. And the point of these is that you can snug these up against the inside of the table of the cutout to make sure that this fits nice and tight in your table and it doesn't shift around on you. So that's important. But we also want to make sure that we have at least enough clearance for that. The plate itself measures 3/8. It's 3/8 thick, so that's the deepness we're going to have to. You have to think of it as a hole with a rabbet around the edge of the hole. Now the hole itself will be just big enough for everything here that needs to fit through. What's more important is that the rabbet itself is deep enough to accommodate what we have here, but we also don't want it to interfere. So I've just got done measuring all the way around, and the shortest distance between the edge and any object is right at about 3/4. So that's going to be what we're going to cut our first hole to. Our clearance hole is going to be the 3/4 border in from the pencil mark there. Alright, so now that we've done that, that is going to be our first cutout. We'll cut that out with a jigsaw, and that will allow us to have clearance to actually drop the lift down into this hole. Alright, let's cut. Alright, so I'm having a little problem here. When I go drop this down in here, it's actually hitting on this back edge and this mechanism here. So, and I've tried various methods of going at an angle, that sort of thing, to try to get down in here. And it just doesn't want to go. I know it's not the router because it's hitting here and it's hitting here. So those are definitely the stopping points that's keeping me from dropping it down in there. I may have to actually cut out here and here a bit to accommodate these protrusions. I'm going to start with trying to just cut this part here, not both sides. I really don't want to weaken this, but I want to see if I can get away with just cutting this part here first. Alright, let's see if that allows us to get this in here. Not quite. I can see now that all I have to do is cut a little bit over on this side, and we should be able to, this should be able to come, to drop in here. There we go. So that's what it took. Grab some scrap plywood and set that up around the plate. And this is what I'm going to do is I'm going to pocket hole these scraps and screw them together to create a frame. And this will be my routing frame. This is what I'll actually run my router pattern bit. I'll run my pattern bit around this edge. Obviously the router plate won't be here. I'll pull it out. But I'll run my pattern bit around that. And that should cut us a nice clean hole. Or a nice clean rabbet all the way around to drop this down. And if I get it right, if I get real close, this should be real close to the level with the surface. But there's some set screws that we can use to actually fine-tune this so it will be perfectly level with the surface. So I'm going to go ahead and drill some pocket holes in these, and then I'll come back. Okay, got that clamped down and should be ready to go. What I've done is I've put my pattern bit in here with the collar on the top, and that's what's going to ride along this frame that we've clamped down. I've got to go 3/8 down, and this is 3/4 the frame, so the total depth is going to be 1 inch and 1/8. That will allow me to route out 3/8 down on the this 3/4 MDF, and by using that bearing, I'll ride along here, and I should get a nice straight cut all the way around that side. Alright, well, I had a part where the bearing slipped, so got to dig in a little bit here, but other than that, it doesn't look bad. With quite a bit of chisel work to just clean up the inside of this rabbit, it's finally laying fairly level. I can feel that it's just a little lower than the table in certain places, but that's not a problem because that's going to get fixed. That will get fixed with these set screws. These individual set screws get screwed into the various threaded holes on the plate, and that is what will actually balance or level out. That will actually level the plate out. I've got it leveled out pretty well. Feels like it's just about level with the surface. It's almost perfect. Okay, the only thing left to do is to pop one of these plates on. Now keep in mind, this is magnetic, so these are going to stay on because of the magnets. And there's actually a notch right here that if you can't get it off because you have a bit in here, you take a small flathead or a small screwdriver, or probably even a small wooden dowel, and you can put it in this notch and pry this plate up very easily. But since I don't have a bit in the place, I can actually get my fingers down in here right now to pop it off. But that's a good fit there. I almost feel like I can almost lift itself out of the table with those 4 magnets on there. So that's very comforting, knowing that that's not likely to come loose when you're in the process of routing something. So it's been several months since I put this lift in, and it's definitely one of those cases of how did I live without this thing all along before. So I think that ought to tell you I'm really happy with it. I'm using it all the time. I use it almost every project. It seems like I'm finding a reason to use it. The lifting mechanism to get it up all the way up where I can access the spindle lock to change bits out is the best. I don't have any problems with that. It's so simple to use now, and it's basically headache free. One of the things that I've never talked about, but I have shown in videos before, is my router table fence that I built. This is just a little shop-made fence, and I originally built it for use with the other my little kind of lift setup that I built, but it works fine obviously with this. One of the things that I did do on this is I built a little box where a 2.5 inch hose, basically a shop vac hose, can plug in here, and it does a surprisingly good job at collecting the dust from the top side. And I've got just some regular bolts with thumb nuts in here, and it's actually I designed it so that it will attach right to the T-slot on my table saw rip fence, and it actually will hold it right in place for me. This setup actually works really, really well. So anyways, I want to thank you for watching this video and going through the whole process with me of modifying this and installing this lift. If you were to buy one, I'd have to say I don't think you'd be disappointed. So thanks for watching again. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. If you are new to my channel, please give me a subscribe. I'd love to have you a subscriber to my channel, and we'll see you next time. My router is a Ridgid, what the hell is it? You'd think I'd know this.